Just do it!
Welcome to the Now. I'm Ashley.
I'm Brian.
Zelda Breath of the Wild was one of the biggest hits of 2017. I think we can all agree on that. It won a ton of Game of the Year awards. It was a huge hit with critics and fans. It did well.
Yeah, it's already been hailed as one of the best games of all time. Definitely helped the Switch get a big boost out of the gate when it launched with the console back in March of 2017.
I mean, it did launch on the Wii U as well, so it gave that console a nice little send-off, RIP Wii U. Actually, now, like, everything from the Wii U is just relaunched on the Switch, and everyone's like, what a great lineup!
Yeah, it's been there all this time.
Poor Wii U.
Well, to nobody's surprise, Nintendo's already hard at work on the next Zelda game, and a new job listing has given us a few clues as to what Nintendo's planning for the future.
Yeah, and we kind of had an idea that they were already working on development for the next title. But this is a great opportunity for us to run down what we know at this point about a possible sequel for Breath of the Wild, whether it's going to be like in that universe or whether they're going to do something else again.
Yeah, okay, so the job listing in question is for a level designer for what it calls the Legend of Zelda series.
Whatever that series is.
Right. And that job will be responsible for a number of tasks, including dungeon planning, as well as something called field planning, which we assume means working on the game's map.
So that certainly does make it sound like they're going with this open world direction, which again, the developers have indicated previously. The job also involves working on cutscenes and designing enemies too, so you're gonna be doing everything. It turns out you're the one making the game.
Hope you're qualified. It's also pretty clear that Nintendo is looking for people who live in Japan. No surprise there. And the company adds that the applicant must be confident in their Japanese communication skills. The job, it's a contract position, and it's located in Kyoto, which is where Nintendo's headquartered.
Now, it's kind of important to note that the job listing doesn't specify this is a Zelda game for the Switch. It could possibly be for, I don't know, 3DS. After all, there have been plenty of other portable Zelda games over the years. Most recently, very well regarded Link Between Worlds in 2013, which many consider to be a classic in its own right and is one of my favorite Zelda games just across the board. It was great.
Yeah, it was a classic. So technically this could be a 3DS/2DS Zelda game, but given how old the 3DS is at this point and considering that Nintendo's moving other franchises like Pokemon off the 3DS and onto the Switch.
Well, I mean, they might still do 3DS Pokemon games. It would be crazy for them not to, but they are making it no longer the exclusive platform to get some of those franchises.
Yeah, to me, it's kind of hard to imagine that Nintendo would be working on a new 3DS Zelda game, especially when you consider that it won't be out for another few years. 3DS will be pretty old by then.
Well, that's all pretty old, even though they are still supporting it.
Yes.
So while they didn't specify, there is a pretty strong chance that this listing is referring to a new Zelda game for the Switch, which would also mean it's a new, probably, mainline Zelda game.
Yeah, of course, again, not a major shock that they'd be working on a new Zelda game already. Zelda has long been one of Nintendo's core franchises ever since the first NES release back in the 80s. And unlike some other franchises like Metroid, for instance.
That hurts.
Yeah, I know, it hurt to write this. It went through a major dry spell. You can pretty much expect a new mainline Zelda game pretty regularly, every 6 years at most.
Yeah, but Breath of the Wild also helped breathe new life into that whole franchise, especially in the most important area for getting sequels, sales.
Yeah, last month, Nintendo said that Breath of the Wild sold almost 10 million units worldwide when you combine both Switch and the Wii U. That made it best-selling Zelda game of all time, not counting remasters.
Because, hey, everyone is really, really, really into Wind Waker.
Yeah, exactly. But it beat out the previous champ, Twilight Princess.
So, yeah, that kind of success, we're gonna get another Zelda game, maybe sooner rather than later, and it's probably going to share a lot of similarities with Breath of the Wild because, hey, that formula worked.
Yes.
They've already got that kind of thing running, which makes a sequel easier to build on a similar tool set, kind of like they did with Majora's Mask, where you take some of the elements, put them back together in a different way, and hey, new game.
They could literally call it more Breath of the Wild, and I would be cool with that. Nintendo, though, they haven't talked specifically about what the next Zelda game might look like, but we have pieced together some tidbits about the next game based on comments from members of the development team.
Right, when we referred to some of those earlier, but let's run down what we know so far. Late last year, series producer Eiji Aonuma said a new Zelda game was in development, so yay, we got that news via Breath of the Wild art book, but Aonuma didn't elaborate further on what the next game might look like then.
But we got a little more detail on that front as the months went on and on. Game director Hidemaru Fujibayashi told IGN, "I can't say at this point if it will be in sequels or in continuations or what form it will take, but I definitely have lots of ideas and lots of motivation right now."
Aonuma also talked to IGN about how gamers loved all the open world freedom in Breath of the Wild and seemed to allude we can expect more of that in the future.
Yeah, he told IGN, I can't speak to what other companies will do in their own games, but I think for me, especially just in terms of the Zelda series, the incredible freedom that Breath of the Wild offers you and how well that's been received, to me, it means that that level of freedom is something that needs to be maintained in Zelda games going forward. My eyes have been opened to how important that is.
And in a past interview with Famitsu, Aonuma also said, "I think that in the future, open air games will be the standard for Zelda." So, pretty good bet we'll be looking at another open world game similar to Breath of the Wild, and that note about field work kinda sounds the direction we're going.
Yeah, as for what the game might look like graphics-wise, not clear yet either, but like we alluded to earlier, probably a possibility that the new game could use the same engine as Breath of the Wild, given how well that game was received. If it's not broke, don't fix it.
Just tweak it.
Yeah.
According to other past interviews from Aonuma, sounds like they're not going to waste all the work they did on the shiny new engine on just one game. That's just wasteful.
Yeah.
In an interview with Eurogamer, he said, "The way the physics engine underpins everything in the world really offers up a lot of new possibilities. For instance, in Breath of the Wild, you might have a puzzle where making use of the physics, there'll be various ways you can solve that puzzle. That really opens up a lot of possibilities, so there's not just one way to progress in the game or just one way to solve a puzzle."
Yeah, lots of people have speculated that the next game could take on a darker tone while using the same engine as Breath of the Wild, similar to, again, how Majora's Mask deviated from Ocarina of Time, while also retaining a lot of its fundamental characteristics.
That's the model we look to a lot. We're like, look, they
Absolutely.
did Ocarina of Time,
Yeah.
they turned around and made Majora's Mask. Do that.
Yep.
And while Majora's Mask didn't hit quite the heights that Ocarina of Time did, it is still considered a classic. A lot of people consider it one of the best Zelda games ever. And hey, you got that all-important remaster.
Yeah. As for a timeline for the next Zelda game, well, probably not going to be anytime soon. If you look at the last few games, Breath of the Wild came out 6 years after Skyward Sword. That was 5 years after Twilight Princess. So we're in that probably 5 to 6 years.
Yeah, sounds like we gotta wait. But for now, pretty clear work is progressing on a new Zelda game, given how great Breath of the Wild was, how well it was received, both critically and commercially. Probably do something similar to that, and if so, I'm on board for what's next.
Absolutely.
You're on board for what's next? Don't tell me no.
No. What do you guys think a new Zelda game might look like? Similar to Breath of the Wild? Radical departure?
What do you want?
Comments. Yeah.
Yeah, and for all of your Zelda news, make sure you like this video. If you're new around here, subscribe to the Know. Tell me what you want.
What do you want?
No. Don't tell me what you want if it's different to what I want. For the Wild art book, but Aonuma didn't elaborate further on what the next game might look like then.
But we got a little more detail on that front. It kind of trickled out. Game director Hidemaru Fujibayashi